I was sitting in my car in the parking lot outside my office. It was a Tuesday in October. I remember because we had just closed a deal I'd been chasing for 8 months, and I felt this pressure, this weight, right in the center of my chest, like someone had placed a cinder block there and was slowly leaning on it. I thought I was having a panic attack. I'd had those before, but this one didn't stop. And by the time the ambulance got there, I was lying on the asphalt, and there was a paramedic named Marcus, young kid, maybe 24, and he kept asking me to stay with him, stay with me. And I kept thinking, stay with him? I don't even know where I've been. I'm 62 years old, and it took me most of my life to understand what I'm about to tell you. That cardiac event, that's what the doctors call it, a cardiac event, like it's a conference you attend. That happened when I was 52, 10 years ago. And the thing that hit me hardest wasn't the fear of dying. It was what I thought about in that ambulance, with Marcus holding an oxygen mask over my face. I tried to think of one moment from that whole year. One thing I'd done that felt real, that mattered, that I could point to and say, yeah, that was worth being alive for. One conversation, one afternoon, one meal where I actually tasted the food and wasn't reading emails with my left hand. I couldn't find it. 52 years on this planet, and I couldn't locate a single moment from the previous 12 months that felt like mine. That's not a midlife crisis. That's a reckoning. Here's what nobody tells you when you're 27 and hungry and building something. Every goal you chase, and I chased all of them, the title, the income, the house on the right street and the right zip code, none of it is ever really about the thing itself. I know that sounds like something you'd read on a coffee mug, but stay with me, because this took me 3.5 decades to actually feel in my body rather than just understand in my head. When I was 31, I was a regional sales director at a distribution company in Cincinnati. I had a team of 11 people, a decent salary, and a boss named Don Whalen who told me repeatedly that I had the ceiling of a regional guy. You think nationally, Gary, he'd say, but you operate locally. That's your problem. And I hated him for it. Not because he was wrong, because he might have been right. So I spent the next 4 years proving Don Whalen wrong. I took a lateral move to a startup in Atlanta that paid me $30,000 less. I worked 70-hour weeks. My daughter Emma was 4 when we moved. She started kindergarten in a city where she didn't know anyone, and I missed her first school play because I was in a hotel in Dallas closing a deal. I got the promotion I was after at 36. National VP of Sales. I remember calling my wife Karen from a conference room in Atlanta, and she said, "Congratulations," in that voice. You know the voice. And I asked her what was wrong, and she said, "Nothing. I'm proud of you." And there was this silence between us that felt like the Grand Canyon. I didn't ask her what she meant. I should have. I told myself I'd have that conversation later, when things settled down. Things never settle down. That's the lie we tell ourselves, that the pace is temporary, that we're in a sprint that leads to a rest. It doesn't. The sprint becomes the life. The invoice for my success arrived over time, in small denominations, not all at once. That's the cruelest part. It wasn't one dramatic moment where I had to choose between family and ambition. It was 1,000 tiny choices, each one reasonable in isolation. Miss this dinner. Be home for the next 3. Skip this vacation. Book a better one. Cancel this call with my son Daniel because the quarterly review ran long. Catch up with him next week. And one day Daniel was 19 and living in Portland, and we talked for maybe 20 minutes every 2 weeks. And I don't know the name of his best friend or what music he listens to or what he's actually afraid of. I know his GPA. I know what he's majoring in. I don't know him. That's not a footnote. That's the whole story. I used to believe, genuinely believe this, that providing financially was the same as being present. That if I built enough security, enough stability, if the house was paid for and the college was funded, then I had done my job. What I was actually doing was substituting a thing I was good at, earning, for something I was terrified of, being seen. Being close enough to people that they could see the parts of me I wasn't proud of. Work was safe. Work had rules. You perform, you get rewarded. Relationships don't work that way, and that used to infuriate me. I didn't understand that the confusion was the point. The vulnerability was the point. My friend Robert, we've known each other since we were both broke 25-year-olds sharing an apartment in Columbus. Robert took a different road. He had the same ambitions I had, maybe sharper, but when his first kid was born, he made a decision that I remember thinking was almost embarrassing. He told his company he wouldn't travel more than 2 nights a month. They could take it or leave it. They took it. He never made it past senior manager. He drove a used car until it had 150,000 miles on it. He and his wife Linda went on simple vacations, camping, road trips, nothing that required a passport. And I used to look at Robert's life with this quiet pity, like he'd settled, like he'd been afraid to reach. I am sitting here at 62 telling you that Robert is one of the happiest people I have ever known. His kids, 3 of them, they call him. Not on birthdays, they just call to talk. His youngest daughter, who is 26 now, she told me at a dinner last spring that her dad is her best friend. Her best friend. That's not a small thing. That is the whole thing. After the hospital, after I recovered, and I was lucky, genuinely lucky, the damage was minimal. I was walking in 6 weeks. I started doing something that I now do every single Sunday morning before anyone else is awake. I make coffee, I sit at the kitchen table, and I ask myself one question. If I had 6 months left, what would I regret not doing? Not the bucket list stuff, not the trips. I mean the specific small human things. The conversation with my brother that we've been avoiding since my father's estate. The apology I owe my daughter Emma for missing more than just that one school play. The afternoon with Karen, where we're not running an errand or watching television, but actually sitting together and talking about what we want the next 10 years to feel like. I write it down. And then I do one of those things that week. Not someday. That week. That practice sounds simple. It is not simple. Because the whole machinery of a busy life is designed to keep you from doing exactly that. There will always be something more urgent, always. The urgent thing is almost never the important thing. I had to get a cinder block on my chest to learn that, and I don't want that for you. Before I go after anything now, and I still have goals, I still work, I still want things, I stop and I ask, what feeling am I actually chasing here? Because every goal I ever pursued was just a delivery vehicle for a feeling I thought I couldn't have without it. Safety, respect, the sense that I was finally, fully enough. Not provisional enough, not enough pending next achievement. Just enough as I am right now. And here's what kills me. Most of those feelings were available to me the whole time. I didn't need the promotion to feel respected. I needed to stop surrounding myself with people who made me feel small. I didn't need the bigger house to feel secure. I needed to sit with the fear long enough to realize it wasn't going anywhere no matter how much I earned. You can't buy your way out of the feeling that you're not enough. I tried for 35 years. The bill was enormous. I have a rule now that my former self would have found insane. I block 2 hours every single day on my calendar, and I call it, to myself, unpaid time. No ROI, no deliverable, no purpose except being human. Sometimes it's a walk with Karen. Sometimes it's calling Daniel just to hear what he's thinking about this week. Not to report in or check boxes, but just to be in his life the way I should have been when he was 8. Sometimes it's sitting on the back porch with a cup of coffee and doing nothing. Actually, nothing. No phone, no podcast, no plan. Just the trees and the light and the knowledge that this moment is my life, not the waiting room before my life. I want to be honest with you. That last part is the hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than building a company, harder than recovering from a heart attack. Because everything in my training, everything in 35 years of conditioning, screams that time without productivity is wasted time, that stillness is laziness dressed up in philosophy. I sit on that porch and there's a voice that says, "You should be doing something." And I have learned, slowly, painfully, to answer that voice. I am doing something. I am being here. That is not nothing. That is everything. Emma and I talked last November, a real talk. She's 31 now. She lives in Nashville. She's building something of her own. We were on the phone for almost 2 hours, and at some point she said, I could hear her choosing her words carefully, she said, "Dad, you're different lately, like actually different, not just saying you're different." And I had to hold the phone away for a second because I was not going to cry on the phone. Or maybe I was. I did a little. And I told her I was sorry, not a general sorry, a specific one, with names and dates and moments. The school play. The vacation I canceled the summer she was 12 because of a merger that ultimately fell apart anyway. The years where I was physically present and emotionally somewhere else entirely. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I know, Dad. I know you are." That is worth more to me than anything I ever built. Purpose. And I spent my whole career chasing purpose, thinking it was at the end of some long road, behind some achievement I hadn't reached yet. Purpose is not a trophy. It is not the reward you get after enough sacrifice. It is a practice. It is built in the ordinary moments you used to rush through on your way to the important stuff. The conversation at the kitchen table. The walk where you're not going anywhere in particular. The moment you look at someone you love and you're not thinking about what needs to happen next. You're just there, fully there. That's it. That is the whole practice. I'm 62. I had a cardiac event in a parking lot in Cincinnati 10 years ago, and Marcus, the paramedic, told me to stay with him. And for the first time in decades, I actually tried to. You still have time I didn't use. Don't wait for the parking lot. If this landed somewhere real for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about the one thing you keep postponing. You know what it is. And subscribe if you want more of this, because I've got 35 years of mistakes and I'm not done unpacking them.